If you know anything about Star Citizen, you would know that they've been creating some new technology that they've been wanting to implement in their own game for quite a while. Really, like, Star Citizen is becoming a proof of concept of this technology. And by that, I mean server meshing. Server meshing is an insane piece of tech that I think could change World of Warcraft forever in a big way. The more I've thought about it, the more I thought, holy shit, this could change everything. Let's watch this video real quick and discuss how server meshing could change MMOs in general. I've actually never played Star Citizen.
CIG is kind of like Tesla. It's arguable this is a tech company disguised as a game company, at least up until now.
Right.
Now they're getting more to the game part, but that's a different video. Star Citizen is a conglomerate of tech systems that have taken a long time, a lot of money, and some smart individuals to put together. Despite that, it runs awfully a lot of the time. The entire game with millions of entities...
Everything I've ever seen from Star Citizen is the game bugging out like crazy. But if they get this tech right, holy shit, they're about to make a shit ton of money.
Is always running on just a single server. The most important goal has always been to change this, to split that one server into potentially dozens, to share the load across populated locations, and create an environment that can support hundreds in relatively close proximity.
Right.
But from object container streaming to entity bind culling, a 64-bit environment to persistent entity streaming, this ultimate goal of Star Citizen to actually become a large-scale MMO is built on a stack of tech, culminating in what's known as server meshing. And it's all going into early testing.
Look, server meshing is essentially, like we've always talked about, oh, if WoW had one server, if it was a mega server. That mega server dream, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. We'd have to wait and see where tech goes in the future. It probably will get there eventually. But server meshing is essentially a mega server. You're just using multiple servers running at the same time, all interconnected. Basically running a single world with multiple servers. And I'm going to talk about how that could change World of Warcraft and what it would look like if WoW was run on a server meshing network. But I'll let this keep cooking here.
Amongst players right now. On screen now, we have a live environment of multiple servers.
Here it is. This is what server meshing is. This is going to blow your mind. Watch this real quick.
Together on stage at CitizenCon
Thanks for the
2024. While I wanted a demonstration like this at that event, with multiple people booting into the game to show this off, I didn't actually expect it. This was the first time that the public saw this concept actually working from CIG. Here is the same meshing process represented by an animation.
And if you don't know, I don't know if he's going to actually show it here, but so this basically right here, each colored zone is being run by a different server, but it's all being run as one place, basically, ready. So, I mean, he could basically drive from this red zone that's being run by one server into this green zone that's being run by another server seamlessly, right? He just goes from one to the other, and there really isn't a transition.
Actually working from CIG.
So maybe you're going to start to figure out what I'm talking about with how World of Warcraft could work with
this.
Same
meshing process represented by an animation at CitizenCon 2021, showing the same thing. Today, using these in combination with my hopefully decent narration, I want to explain server meshing, the tech meant to transform Star Citizen into an MMO of cities, fleets, and large-scale gameplay, as well as the lonely, distant environments and abandoned corners of space. This is your guide on what is server meshing and when we might see it. Thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk.
Tomato Talk, yes.
I've hosted a few podcast episodes about server meshing, some of with folks you may recognize. In one episode with a member of the community, Panic Switch, I was introduced to the idea that server meshing was like the next generation of loading screens for games. A packaged set of services that was common in some applications, but more new to gaming. A concept that could help to create vast interconnected networks in games the likes of which Epic may be trying to make. This service...
I know it'll never come back, but I kind of miss single servers. You got to know the community, maintain your reputation. Yep, I remember those days, definitely. Like I said before, I talked about it. I played on Shattered Hand. There was a guy named Bridezilla who used to freaking kill people 24/7, PvP the shit out of us down. We'd be trying to quest on the Isle of Quel'Thalas and stuff, and this guy was just known. But this was back before cross servers and all that shit. Like, everybody on Shattered Hand knew who this guy was. He was a bitch, and like, your goal in life was to find him and kill him. He was a Tauren shaman or Tauren druid. Hated him. That kind of stuff doesn't exist anymore on basically where you got cross server play and everything. Yeah, the community is changed in that regard. But if you had server meshing in World of Warcraft, which would essentially create one massive server, uh, maybe you could have that reputation. You just have a lot more people to basically that would need to know you before you became famous.
Server
But
meshing
everyone would play
has been
together.
attempted in a few different settings in gaming, and statically it is utilized to major success in well-known games. But dynamic server meshing, the true goal of Star Citizen, will allow for servers to scale across a star system as needed when players move around, condensing for areas of high population where hundreds of players may concentrate, and stretching to lower server costs in areas where very few players exist over a vast amount of space. And all of this
Crazy.
will take place at extreme precision in a 64-bit environment displayed in first person across a number of different mediums. This monumental task is a major reason why Star Citizen has taken so long, and a source of many costs, hires, and acquisitions. The tech the team is working with should definitely not be understated, but understanding how it works is actually not so difficult. Let's take a look at that recent demonstration of server meshing compared to the representative animation.
Okay, watch this. This is mind blowing shit.
So going back to that live demonstration, the demo begins by showing us the entities present, including their connections to each other and where they reside in the game. All of this is stored in the entity graph, the long-term storage of the game, which is connected to us via persistent entity streaming. This happens in real time, as you can see on the screen now. Entities created, entities tracked. Pretty standard.
Okay, yeah.
With the server split into multiple zones or containers, as can be seen here in red, green, and purple, entities can transition between different containers in the game, and their state is replicated
That's
across
mind-blowing.
the others so that every single container
This object that he's hitting, he's shooting this object, and its trajectory it's transferring servers. This is an instant server transfer. Watch when he kicks this object. It goes from the purple server
so that
to the
every
green
single
server.
container in the area is
And nothing was lost there. There was no weird glitch or lag. This thing just jumped servers
aware of
instantly.
what's happening to these objects. This means seamless transitions in between these game containers. Again, not the most complicated thing, but this is how millions of entities are handled, and it will continue to scale here in a moment. In the meantime, you can see here that certain parameters can be used to actually offload entities and containers from a player's visible game space as they move away. This means the only things that are actually loaded for a player at any given time are the things immediately around them, keeping that load much smaller than the overall game. But even then, you can only really allow for this so many times on a single server.
Right.
And this is where server meshing comes in. With the technology we're about to review, the same space handling all those entities, containers, and players can actually be split into multiple servers, so there is one server per container, while still maintaining that single game shard structure that everybody would be playing on.
Right.
This only works due to a complicated entity authority
So
system.
now basically behind my picture here, you've got 3 servers that are being used to load this one room. Okay, again, think about how this could be used in WoW, because I'm going to explain it
Meaning
to you
each
in a
server
minute.
needs to understand which server is in charge of the objects it's tracking. A vehicle, a player, a grenade, possibly even a bullet. If something happens to that object, that action and the state changes the object goes through needs to be communicated to every other server in real
Right.
time, so that any player in any of those other servers can also see those
He's
changes
about to
in real
server.
time.
Boom. He just freaking server transferred. He literally just server transferred. And
So
at
see
one
those
point,
changes in real time.
he's freaking split right now. The back end of his vehicle is being loaded in one server, and the front is in another. That's how he can seamlessly transition.
It's a ridiculously complicated process that's
crazy
meant to play out
complicated.
millions of times per second across star systems, planets, space stations, spaceships, and more, on various servers at the same time, while also facilitating all the gameplay the company is building. As you can imagine, dozens of servers connecting and working like this is going to get out of hand very quickly. We'll talk about the solution to that in a little bit. So as players are moving back and forth between servers, there's virtually no loading process visual as they transition.
Right.
The communication of which server is deciding what happens is also an immediate transition, as can be seen from the color of the boxes around these objects transitioning back and forth as they move between servers.
Right.
Due to the graph-like nature of the database, all the child entities like ammo magazines, health packs, and even a person inside of a vehicle are transitioned across servers as well when
Yep.
the parent entity moved between.
Okay, now picture this. Okay, are you ready? Picture this thought right now. Say that a server on WoW, basically a WoW server, let's just, to make the numbers easy, let's say, your typical WoW server holds 10,000 players. I don't know, that number is just, I'm pulling that number out of my ass, right? So say in all of the entirety of Azeroth on your server right now, you basically have 10,000 players that can be loaded into Azeroth at any time. That's all that server can handle. Whether or not it's 10,000 people from that single server, whatever it's fucking, we got 4 packs basically of cross server shit going on. Whatever it is, any server can hold 10,000 people in the world of Azeroth all at once. Okay? Now picture this 10,000 people, all of Azeroth. Now you can fit 10,000 people just in Stormwind. Okay, now how is that? Because a single server, picture this green zone right now, is Stormwind. Stormwind is being run by a single server. You can now have 10,000 people just in Stormwind. As soon as you cross into Elwynn Forest, you are now on a different server, but it's being run on the same server mesh network, basically. So now you can have 10,000 people in Stormwind, 10,000 people in Elwynn Forest, on the same Azerothian world. Okay, now every single zone can be run that way. So whatever you're talking about, now you got 26 zones, right? You could have 260,000 people. If every zone is being run by a separate server, you could have 260,000 people essentially playing on a single Azeroth. That's freaking insane. That means you could basically have your entire community, all of World of Warcraft, run on a one giant server mesh network where everybody is always in the same. And that stops also, like, if a world boss opens up in a zone, that's fine because that server load is being run by that single server that used to run the entire world. Now it can run just a single zone. So you're not going to have that zone lag. You can have bigger events in zones. You could have huge, like the opening of Ahn'Qiraj, like gates, like shit like that could be run, because you have the whole world being run by separate servers. That server load is only being handled by one in that zone. That's mind-blowing shit. That could really change MMOs, not just World of Warcraft, but MMOs forever.
It doesn't stop there. Players can actually interact with objects on other servers too. While this complicates things, it does mean that fleet battles, endurance races, and even city blocks could potentially be split into multiple servers if need be.
Yeah, I mean, even if the population got so big, you could even have the different districts of Stormwind run by different servers. Like the trade district's one, the Dwarven district's another, the mage, they are all run by different servers. Then you could, instead of 10,000 people in Stormwind, you could have 40,000 people in Stormwind. That's how expansive, that's how crazy this technology could be, and how quickly it could, change and rapidly develop into multiple servers running the same freaking zone even. You could have millions of people now in Azeroth if you did that shit.
Running better in that area than it is right now. This would help.
Yes, that would be cool as long as it's seamless. You are right, Conicia, and that is what this technology is still working on, is making that transition between servers as seamless as possible. They're going to show you stuff here that really gets into, I mean, you have basically objects being thrown across servers, bullets being shot, that time and everything, because you would basically need to make sure that if a fireball from a mage is shot from one zone and it crosses into another, that trajectory and everything about it is exactly perfect. Otherwise, it'll lag up or lag down or do something weird. And that's the limitations of this right now, is that's what they're working on, is creating a seamless transition between servers.
Help a lot during something like the Daymar Rally, which I covered last month, and you guys could see how my performance was. This is the real magic of this specific implementation.
You would still need different servers for the US and Oceania. Yeah, you probably would. You'd probably still need different. I mean, even Mr. GM in a recent interview was asking about could we ever see EU and US players together, and she actually brought up legal reasons as to why that really can't happen. There's different laws between how a game, games can run in the US versus the EU and shit like that. Whatever that is, yes, you could have still separation in those, but basically all of the NA servers would be one server. They'd be multiple servers, but they'd all be playing in one world. That's the crazy thing. Yes, I can see games like this played on Starlink Mesh Network. Yeah, true.
Server meshing.
Yeah, whether or not, whatever internet, it'd have to have a good internet connection, that's for sure.
Servers can also stream themselves in and out like we saw earlier with the containers, meaning if a server is handling some space that's completely unused, it would be able to take itself virtually offline. This ability for servers to shut down if needed or to grow and handle more space to account for other servers means hefty cost savings for CIG. It
That's
also
interesting. So if you have a zone from an old expansion where literally nobody is there right now, that server could be shut off. That's
could
an
mean they
interesting.
want to move to dynamic server meshing, which allows for this resizing, as opposed to the initial static server meshing we're seeing right now. But as I said before, the communication across all these different servers, passing constant updates back and forth, would get exponentially out of hand pretty quickly.
Sure.
This is where the replication layer comes in. A topic we discussed on the last video in this
The
series,
hell is
the
this?
replication layer is the one true timeline of all data in the game.
Oh god.
It is the RAM to the entity graph's hard disk long storage drive. The replication layer tracks every change in any server and replicates that change to the central timeline of information so that any other server can simply reference that line of data, rather
Okay.
than needing to open a specific line of communication with the other server.
So this basically allows all the servers to know what's going on in all the other servers.
Rather than needing to open a specific line of communication with the other servers. It basically puts the simulation that runs the whole game for us on a completely different set of independent servers from the data the game relies on. This separation is game-changing when it comes to the data flow and was the last remaining hurdle before server meshing became a possibility for the game.
Interesting.
Keeping this flow of data from entities to the server, and then from the server to the replication layer, and then replicated out to all the other servers loading the game is absolutely crucial to Star Citizen becoming the MMO it aims to be. It also allows for any number of servers to crash without wiping out the current position or progress
That's
of the
good.
player. Another server will just boot back up to take its place and reconnect to the replication layer like the game was there.
So yeah, it's the one true timeline. It's the one keeping track of everything that's going on across these servers, and basically any server can be loaded in or loaded out and just pull from this one true timeline to understand what it should be loading and what it should look like.
long. If you didn't catch that, this could be the death of 30Ks on a mass scale. After 7+ years of various technological efforts slowly building up the tech stack that makes this possible, after needing to put off many other developments to wait for this moment, after constantly hearing that the main thing holding this game back is server meshing, it appears it may actually be happening. And here is what we know about...
It also turns out that they were telling the truth. We've always heard these game companies talking about, oh, this one thing we're waiting on this. They were telling the truth. And when it was compared to Tesla early on, they're right. Like if you look at Tesla, for the most part, they kind of make shitty cars. I'll be honest, they do. If you ever look at a Tesla, the way it's manufactured, the way everything lines up, its panels, all kinds of shit that it does, it's a shitty car. But one thing Tesla's really good at is software. They make the best in-vehicle software right now in the market. And basically their car is just used as a proof of concept of their software. That's what carries them. So that's what this game basically is. Star Citizen is essentially a proof of concept of this crazy tech that these guys are creating. And once they master server meshing, shit, they could charge Blizzard and everybody else tons of, essentially Microsoft, tons of money to be able to use their tech. That's their real money grab from all of this.
when this may be in our own hands.
If you ever seen the movie Ready Player One, it would essentially have to be run on a server meshing network to be able to hold the entire population the way it was in that game on a single world.
While the replication separation is scheduled for 3.23 in April, there's no guarantee that's when it happens. But there are signs that all this tech
Did this happen? I wonder. This was February 1st, 2024. Does anyone play Star Citizen? Did this shit happen?
But there are signs that all this tech is coming together and working well. While initial tests of the replication layer crash recovery back in December started out taking 5 minutes to continue the game after a server crash, more recent tests show this time down to 2 minutes. As this progresses, it means anytime there is a disconnection of a server, players won't be affected more than just sitting around for a couple seconds, ideally, if that. And the big topic, the actual server meshing, is working. Over the last couple of weeks, CIG has run a few close tests with members of the community that hosted 2 completely separate servers meshed together and running separately on the same shard. Later tests have even included jump points, which functionally and seamlessly transported players between 2 different star systems for the very first time in Star Citizen's history, marking a 4-year stretch between the introduction of jump points in the engine and players actually experiencing them in some form themselves, however limited it may be. This is a monumental moment for Star Citizen. You can tell literally just by how much coverage it's getting. and it's arguably the most important technological development for the game so far. This isn't the
It's not just for the game. It's for games in general. This thing is crazy.
ultimate goal of dynamically resizing and adjusting servers, though. While things seem to be going relatively well and working towards static server meshing in the live build of Star Citizen, dynamic server meshing is not yet a guarantee. With what we've seen from CitizenCon, the monthly reports, and the slow progress over the last 18 months since persistent entity streaming proved possible, server meshing seems more likely this year than previous years in its most basic implementation. From the more multi-crew and multi-ship focused gameplay, to all the new locations, to even just the factions needed, we've slowly watched the game grow to this point when it now feels viable and reasonable for a new star system to be added. There is a very good chance you'll be playing a server-meshed Star Citizen environment this summer, or shortly after.
Damn, that's crazy.
But there's also a chance you don't notice the much-needed performance boost many expect. While multiple servers will be meshed together into one shard, as far as we know, only one server will handle either system, possibly leaving players without a game-changing update to the performance. That being said, we are in uncharted territory. Nobody on the internet, including myself, can predict what will be happening 8 months from this video. CIG is likely to recalibrate after seeing how 4.0 performs on live servers. So while server meshing may finally actually be right around the corner for us, and Star Citizen is taking its biggest step forward possibly in its history this year, we'll just have to wait and see what this really means for Star Citizen in 2024.
Yeah, Star Citizen and everything
Thank you for
else.
watching this video. There's a lot more to say about server meshing, and we'll likely host a couple deep dives on this topic on my live stream here on the channel, which you can find published to the second channel over on Space Tomato 2. And if you're looking for some gameplay content, I just started a channel specifically for it that I'll be posting more to in the coming months. Finally, if you'd like to support what we do here, you can sign up on Patreon or YouTube to become a member and get different benefits like live podcast access, exclusive videos, and your referral code in our referral code randomizer. Whatever you decide, thank you for watching. I hope you learned something new in this video, and I'll catch you in the next.
Yeah, it's a mind-blowing tech. It's mind-blowing tech because of the possibilities that it brings to other games as well. Like I said, I mean, one of the crazy things that if you look at just what they were showing here, I think he was showing a ship that was basically floating in space. You're essentially looking into another server when you're looking across the borders of two servers, right? So somebody could be flying around, or like I've used the example before, standing in Elwyn Forest and looking into Stormwind, right? Like I keep using those two examples, but that's a very easy one to think about. You're essentially looking into another server, and if you see somebody running towards you, you're seeing what's being loaded by another server happening on your server. And I think that's what the One True Timeline is all about too, is kind of interconnecting and understanding what's going across all servers, what's going on across all servers. So that way, it's seamless. Essentially, each server is not just working independently, even though they are, which allows more people to be playing the same game on the same, basically, network. But at the same time, they're interconnected, and everything that's happening in one is happening on the other. Sam, I choose you. Stop being a little bitch. I'll try. Maybe one day server meshing can make me stop being a little bitch, or mesh my bitchiness across multiple servers. We'll have to wait and see. But like I said, as the Stormwind music kicks off in the background, the possibility of every single World of Warcraft player playing on in a single shard in a single world could be made possible by this technology. And that's why it's so mind-blowing.